Hi guys, I am here with Mr. Ming. I haven't done a video with him in a while. I need to change him, but he looks so cute in his little panda. I am going to quickly do Butterfly Baby Kisses Nurseries Getting to Know You, or another Getting to Know You tag. I did one about a year-ish ago, and I know, I want to say Sharon or Shannon, I can't remember exactly who, kind of resurrected the tag, and a few people have been doing it, and I know I've gotten some followers from that, so thank you for joining us. And there's some tags, like, if I make up a tag, I'll just say this right now, if I make up a tag and you come whatever time later and you want to do it, just go ahead and do it, as long as I'm given credit for it. And I know I like to give credit to people for starting tags, so if I see a tag that I like, that I see, say Kylie does, Kylie Cat, I think it's Kylie Cats, if I see a tag she does, and it's not a tag she started, but I will try to trace back who did that tag and then give them credit for it. If they don't have the questions typed out, I also like to type out the questions for everybody and put them in the comments below. So this will have Butterfly Baby Kisses Nursery link to her doing this tag, as well as she was kind enough to type out the questions, so they will be below too, so that you can see the original tag. Because I just feel that, you know, if somebody's going to take the time to create this tag, not only make the video, but think of the questions to make the tag, they need credit. Credit is due to them. So anyways, there are 7 questions, and I will get started. Question number 1, what do you or did you do for a living? Currently, I'm a stay-at-home mom of my 2 kiddos who are soon to be in 1st and 3rd grade. We had kind of planned that once they started going to school, I would go back to work. But moving down here, I've been really involved with their school. Like, I've gone on every field trip. I've been to the parties. I typically go to my son's party, and I either have my husband, if he's able to, or my mother-in-law go to my daughter's party, because I'm actually my son's room mom. I volunteered to be a helper, or a parent helper, in both classrooms, but my daughter's classroom, being she was in kindergarten, had an abundance of parent volunteers. You know, the eager, my kid first year in school, I'm going to do this, and then as years go on, less and less volunteer. There were 3 other volunteers besides myself in my son's 2nd grade class. Nobody wanted to be the room mom, so I kind of like, well, not exactly sure what I'm doing, but I'll do it anyway. So his teacher has been great about helping me along the way with that, and you know, what to kind of do with that. So I have been in his room mom. I go on their field trips with them. If there's things going on at the school, I'm there for it. Even if it's like my kids just had their award ceremony, I was at both of their award ceremonies. So I try to be as active in the school as possible. I applied for the PTO, but for some reason I'm not getting the emails. Why? I'm not sure. So I would love to go to the PTO meetings if I knew even when they were. So next year, once again, I will pay the dues, join the PTO, and be like, okay, now when are the meetings? Because I need to know. I didn't get the emails last year. So anyways, that's what I'm currently doing, because honestly, being a stay-at-home mom, honestly, is probably one of the hardest jobs I've had, because when they're home, I don't get a break, and it also it makes it nice in a way. When they're in school, you get the break, but like when they're off, I don't have to worry about trying to get time off work, but then trying to entertain them on their days off. My kids have never been to a daycare, or a true daycare. My friend would watch them from time to time, and she kind of had an at-home daycare. when we lived in Minot, but they've never been enrolled in a daycare. And going to what did I do? I used to work in a daycare for quite a few years, and then I worked at Head Start until I had my son. And Head Start is a fantastic program. I love the idea of Head Start. It's just the one that I was working at. When I started, it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. But when I got pregnant with my son, I got moved to a different location. I did not get along with one of the teachers in that location, and there were some major changes that happened between the 2 years, and it just became a very hostile environment, where the year after I had my son, I didn't go back because 2 reasons. I became a stay-at-home mom, and the other one was because it had got kind of a toxic amongst the staff, more specifically amongst the staff and some of the coordinators, or like in my case, I had to go to this teacher. It was supposed to be my boss, and then the person above her. Like, I would go to the person above her and be like, I've tried working with her. I'm getting nowhere with her. And, she, one minute she's saying that I'm not prepared enough, what was it? I just had a lot of responsibilities as assistant teacher versus what responsibilities a head teacher had. Mine were way more than hers. Like, I had to do 2 classes where she only had to do 1. I had to clean the room. I had to do this. There was lots more responsibilities on the assistant teacher than there were the head teacher. And one minute she was like, well, why aren't you doing your lesson plans? And it's like, because I have to do lesson plans for 2 classes and you're only doing it for 1. Then she decided, well, I'm going to take over doing your lesson plans, and she didn't do it, so then I would get in trouble because my lesson plans weren't done. So it was very frustrating, and that ultimately was like my final decision of I want to be a stay-at-home mom. As well as when I worked at the daycare, there was a daycare that I initially worked at that I absolutely loved. I probably would have stayed there for quite a bit longer. I was there 2 years, and I reluctantly quit because I was a classroom assistant and a float. I was hired as part-time, and then at a year when the center was full, I would go to full-time. Well, that year came, and my supervisor, I was working 25 hours a week, I think is what it was. Yeah, it was about 5 hours a day. So I was working 25 hours a week. And at a year, she bumped it up to 30 hours a week, which, I mean, it was nice. So that was 6-hour days. It was still a little disappointing because I needed a full-time job. And, I went to her. I'm like, you said that at a year I'd be full-time. And she's like, yeah, I know. They just are, the organization we're under isn't allowing me to go full-time with you yet. So we're going to do 30 to 32 hours a week. Okay. That's 5 to 7 hours more. It's not a whole lot of big increase in pay, but it's a little bit. Maybe we'll just work our way up to full-time. And when I hit when I hit 18 months, all of a sudden they bumped me back down to 25 hours a day. With, once again, the promise that around 2 years they would increase it to full-time. And, I just kept plugging along, and this was right after my husband and I got married. So there were things that, we needed to take care of as a married couple. I didn't want everything to be relied on. His check was paying all the bills. Yes, his checks covered the bills, and at that time we didn't have kids, so he could work all the overtime he needed. But, I just didn't want to do that to him. And right at 2 years, I once again asked, when am I going to be full-time? And then I got the I don't know answer. And like I said, I loved this daycare. I loved the families that I worked with. It was a nice atmosphere, and amongst staff we got along pretty well. But it's just, I needed something full-time. So I started looking at other daycares, and I found this other daycare that I worked at full-time. And I did an interview, got the job, started working, and instantly I regretted it. I mean, yes, I had full-time hours. I actually got a pay increase. Like, I was making basically after 2 years at the one daycare a little above minimum wage, and the other job was full-time, plus I was making $12 an hour. So the money was great, and I had full hours. I had 40 hours a week, but it was just, you were on a rotating schedule. This daycare wasn't 24 hours a day. It was open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. But nobody had set scheduled hours. Like you got a schedule every week. And one week you might be working from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. One day, I mean, there was some days that you'd work 10 hours one day, and then you'd have like 5 hours or 10 hours, so I'm trying to do the math in my head. Yeah, you'd work 10 hours one day. So you'd work 3 hours. Well, wait. Yeah. Oh, 2 hours. You'd work 10 hours one day, and the next day you'd work 6 hours. Like, you'd always get your 40 hours in, but it wasn't consistent shifts. And the next week it would be completely different. There were some days that, like, I didn't have to come until 10 o'clock in the afternoon or in the morning, but then I had to close at 6. Then the next morning I'd have to be up at 6 to be back, or 5:30 to be at work by 6 to make sure I was there before it opened. It just, it wasn't a healthy for employee-wise. Like, I know there's scheduled shifts and swing shifts and stuff like that, but even with swing shift, you typically work that swing shift for a few weeks and then it goes into a different shift. Where this is, your body could never get used to sleep patterns, because one day you get a sleep in and the next day you're up at 5:30 a.m. I mean, it's just, it was everywhere, as well as the kids were always sick in the classroom. They never sent kids home. Like, one day there was a boy in the class, and I worked with the approximately 9 months old when they started being mobile or crawling to 2 years old. And there was a little boy that was in the classroom that had diarrhea, and he had 102 fever. And in order, before we could send kids home, we had to go talk to one of the directors, and there was like 4 directors. So you had to talk to one of the directors. So I went to talk to the director, and her response was, "Oh, just give him some Tylenol, he'll be fine." And I mean, this was at noon, and he didn't usually get picked up till 6 o'clock. When his dad came, his dad was furious. And I don't blame him. Like, here the poor child doesn't feel good. He wasn't even a year old, has 102 fever, has had diarrhea all day, and I mean, the poor kid just wanted to sleep. Like, literally, he went into the play area, would grab his blanket and go find a corner that the rest of the babies would leave him alone to sleep. And I felt so bad for this little guy. And then I got sick, and I literally only worked there 6 weeks. So 3 days after I started, I got sick. And it wasn't until almost 2 months after I was done that I was finally fully healthy. Like, because I was out of that environment. Like, kids were constantly sick. We were never at ratio either. And honestly, that daycare made me so afraid to put my kids in daycare. Because while I did have such a fantastic, positive experience at the first daycare, just that one bad daycare just made me fearful to put my kids in daycare. So, I've rambled on enough about question number 1. Go on to question number 2. If you are married, where did you meet your husband? We met online. And I think the website was hotornot.com. And then it turned out we were actually matched on Match.com, but neither of us realized it because neither of us really used it. Number 3, how do you spend your free time? Watching TV, making videos for YouTube, I wouldn't even say playing with my dolls, like dressing them or rearranging stuff in where I usually record, surfing the internet, talking to friends. I think of other, like, I used to scrapbook, but like here when I would scrapbook, I'd take over a whole area, but having kids and taking over a whole area doesn't work so well. My husband and I have also discussed that when we buy a house, if it doesn't have an extra room, like, we're hoping to get a minimum 4-bedroom home, but there's a few that we've looked at that could possibly have, like, a den and a dining room. So the dining room would become our kids' playroom, and the den, since it would have a closable door, would become my room. And there I could set up like my sewing machine, and I want to learn how to sew. I can have my scrapbook and stuff in there, so that way I can do that. I can spread out and do that, because I haven't done that in so many years, and I used to love doing that. Number 4, if you could spend a day in someone else's shoes, who would it be? Honestly, I don't know that answer. There's not really anybody I can think of that I'd want to be. I mean, I know my life isn't a bed of roses and all sunshine and rainbows. I know that, and that's the reality of life, but you know, like, people would probably pick celebrities and whatnot, but a lot of them don't even have the best lives either. So they may have money, but that's about it. Number 5, what trait draws you to a new person? Being honest, being real. I'm not into fake people. If you're going to be fake in life, I don't have time for you. There are some people in my life, not by choice, that are very fake, and I try to spend as little time possible with those people. So I prefer to have people that are honest, that, like, even in my life, they're going to give me honest feedback. Somebody that's easy to get along with, not high maintenance. I mean, I'm not a high maintenance person either. I want to be comfortable, like, just kind of instant clicking and comfortable. Like, there's people that I have met, like, I've chatted online with for a while, and then you meet them in person, and it's like you've known them your whole life. That's who I'm usually drawn to, not necessarily I want to have like a huge number of friends. I mean, it would be nice to have more friends down where I'm at now, but you know, I'd rather have a few close, reliable, honest friends over a bunch of fake, just gonna talk smack about you friends. So probably honesty and low maintenance, because for what I find, people with high maintenance are usually the most fake. 6, has anything ever happened to you that you cannot explain? There's been lots of stuff that's happened to me that I can't explain. Starting with when, and I mean, these can be like, you try to explain it in this and it gives you comfort in this, but I think I've mentioned before that when my grandfather passed away, we only had Teffy. I think she's sleeping behind me. I don't know if you guys can see her. No, you can't. The car seat's behind me and she's sleeping in it. Teffy! Yeah, you. So we got Teffy just before my grandfather passed away, and like when he was in the nursing home, I'd take her to the nursing home to see him. He absolutely loved her. I've got pictures of her cuddled up next to him as both of them are in the nursing home sleeping on his bed, because the nursing home he was in was great about allowing families to bring in their pets as long as it was within reason. So anyways, like literally a few minutes before my mother called to say my grandfather was gone because she had spent the night with him that night that he passed away at the hospital. Right around the time he passed away, Teffy was in the living room meowing. And she usually slept in my bed at that time. And I heard her meowing and I was just, whatever, like, Teffy, quiet. And the next thing I knew, she came flying into our bedroom, jumped up on our bed, landed straight on my chest, and just would not leave me alone and just kept meowing. And I mean, I was trying to get her pushed off, like, Teffy, stop. What is going on with you? And I just started dozing off, and my mom called to say my grandfather was gone. And I honestly don't remember getting up out of bed. I don't remember the phone ringing. I just remember our bed is always against the wall because A, I kind of prop myself up against the wall as I sleep. B, my husband sleeps in the middle of the bed and I would probably fall off the bed every night. So the next thing I was on my side of the bed, and the next thing I remember is standing over my husband on the bed with the phone in my hand screaming. And screaming for him to wake up. We had to go. So, I mean, it's kind of explained, like, the only thing that we can think of is that my grandfather came to say goodbye. And he was in the living room. I don't know. There was also occurrences. We actually had my grandparents' couch after my grandmother moved. And my grandfather loved that couch. And after we brought the couch to our house, there were instances, like, he also used to love to watch Wheel of Fortune. I would come home from work and the TV would be on, and it would be on Wheel of Fortune. I mean, it would be the time Wheel of Fortune was on. And I would get so mad at my husband, and I'd be like, why didn't you turn the TV off again? Because he has a habit of walking out of bedrooms and turning TVs off. And this was like an old tube TV that, unless you turn the timer off, they didn't turn off on their own after so many hours. So the TV was on, and I would come home and I'd call him and be like, why the heck did you leave without turning the TV off again? I'm so sick of this. You're wasting electricity. And I would just go off on him about this. And he'd be like, I didn't even go in the living room. He goes, I got up, I got dressed, I grabbed something to eat, and I left. He goes, I didn't even go in the living room, so I don't even know what you're talking about. And then, just recently, when my grandmother passed away, she passed away in the middle of the night as well. And my mom called me sobbing. That the nursing home had just called her to say Grandma was gone. That they went to check on her and she was gone. Well, right around the time that happened, Jack, which we didn't have Jack with my grandmother. I mean, we would show her pictures of him. She had seen plenty of pictures of him, but I don't think she ever saw Jack. Anyways, Jack, all of a sudden, I mean, we were living here when it happened. I don't know where he was in the house, and next thing I know, he's on top of me. I'm like, get off of me, cat. Like, really, knock it off. Just started dozing off, and my mom called. So, both cats have an instance with my grandparents passing away. I can't really explain it, why it happened that way, but it did. And those are just two examples that come to my head. And number 7, are you known for A, a good sense of humor, B, being super smart, C, being attractive, D, having a good heart, generous person? Well, I know it's not. Well, C is definitely not an answer, or out for the answer. B, I'm not super smart. I know what my IQ is, and it's a little bit above average, but it's not in the, like, genius level. A and D are kind of toss-up. I'm like my dad, and I will just say stuff that, like, it comes out funny, and it's not necessarily meant to be funny. And it's just like, it popped in my head, so it popped out my mouth. I know my daughter has no filter, and I know where that came from. But, like, my husband will just look at me and start laughing if I say something. And I've had other people say that, like, where did you get that? Like, I don't know. And my dad's dad was the same way. And D, being a good-hearted, generous person. I love to give. I mean, people that know me know this. I just, like, when Hurricane Harvey hit, we didn't have a whole lot of money at that time, so I couldn't donate money, but I found things that I could donate and take the shelters to help where I could. So I do like to do that. And like, even around the area, there's homeless, like, there are the panhandlers, but then there are true homeless people that are down on their luck. And when I see a true homeless person, I like to try to help them as well, versus somebody standing on a street corner with just a teeny tiny backpack, you know, look well groomed, well clean, with their big sign saying, homeless, disabled, down on my luck, anything will help. I'm sorry, but to me, yeah, they might be homeless, but that more falls into the panhandler category. And, like, there's this one guy that's not far from us that is truly homeless. Like, he's got this shopping cart that is full of stuff that, like, his sleeping bag, umbrella, one of those foam mat things to put his sleeping bag on to sleep. I mean, he's got his cart with basically his whole life in this cart. And he's not well groomed. He's kind of dirty when you go talk to him. I mean, he's a sweet person, but he kind of smells. But that's somebody that you can tell is really down on their luck. And I don't know necessarily how to help him out more than, because he's not a veteran, then, you know, just when you see him, give him some water. Maybe take him over to the convenience store, pick up some fast food to help him get him to the next meal, or and such. So I like to do stuff like that. I like to help people. So those are my answers for this tag. As I said, I will have them in the comments below. The link to Butterfly Baby Kisses Nursery and the questions below. So I hope everybody has a great day, and I will see you all later. Bye.